Laid back and kicking it, let's head back to the studio. Here's Rod.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 201 of the Rod Pedersen Show continues, Canada's morning sports talk show. Couple things you saw or heard from Bruce Axelson in the break, the man atop Capital Auto Mall. Neil Shuchuk's watching the show from Whitecourt, Alberta, and he writes that he says, wow, so good to see Bruce Axelson. I remember when he had a GM dealership in Melfort in the 1980s. He may have sponsored the first game you did for us from Notre Dame. LOL. Good memory, Shuey. Holy smokes. My first game in the SJHL was on CJVR Melfort. Wow, Shuey.
Wow.
That you would remember that. That's why you, sir, are a savant. And I have a message here from Capital. Our poll questions for Capital, as always, of course, in Universal Collision Center. In these challenging times, they're here to help. Visit capitalgmc.ca. The poll question today, what's the minimum number of games to preserve the integrity of a CFL season? The options are 8, 10, 12, or 14. What do you think's leading, Dupes?
12. I think I convinced everybody that 12 is leading.
You're right. 31% of respondents saying 12.
Not a resounding number, though.
Oh, 31% says 12. 30% say 8.
Yeah.
27% say 10 games, and 12% say a 14-game season was a minimum amount of games that would preserve the integrity of the CFL. Now, I guess I'm getting to my morning sports and my topics here, but Randy Ambrosi is going to be speaking with the media and fans tomorrow on a live Facebook chat. So we'll see what he gets. This is like the NHL. You're not going to please everybody.
No.
And Randy knows enough. He's a great leader of the Canadian Football League. He knows enough that he'll do what he thinks is right. And if you don't like it, go jump in the lake.
Yep.
Sports update for Ballers Rec Room and Red Bull Canada. The NHL has postponed 3 of its events in June, including the 2020 draft. The league announced on Wednesday that it was temporarily halting its scouting combine, award ceremony, and draft that were scheduled for June amid the COVID-19 pandemic. It did not provide new dates for the events. The draft was scheduled for June 26th and 27th at the Bell Center in Montreal, while the combine was set to kick off the month in Buffalo, New York from June 1st to 6th, and the NHL awards were to go June 18th in Las Vegas. Meanwhile, the Carolina Hurricanes are asking full-time employees to take vacation or personal days off next week with limited operations due to the coronavirus. In an interview with the Associated Press, team president and GM Don Waddell said the request was the best avenue to take for the next 10 days. The team had announced this week that it would temporarily close its offices as of Tuesday while employees work remotely. And have you heard what Bauer's doing?
Missed it.
Canadian hockey equipment manufacturer Bauer is offering to modify its production line to make protective visors for doctors, nurses, and first responders. The protective equipment to help deal with the COVID-19 pandemic would be produced at the company's Innovation Center in suburban Montreal, as well as its facility in Liverpool, New York. Bauer's vice president of products, Dan Bourgeois, says he has already received calls from Montreal police, firefighters, and hospitals interested in the products. The proposed full-face visors are made of plastic and contain anti-fogging material.
Very cool.
Talk about innovation. Way to go, Bauer. Stick tap to Bauer. Stick tap to Capital. Where'd my stick go? Stick tap to them all.
Yeah.
That got Clark's attention. Sports update for Ballers Rec Room, Regina's newest entertainment destination. They are closed temporarily. Watch their social media feeds for news on that. And for Red Bull Canada, thanks to Red Bull Canada for jumping on board. Watch out for the Red Bull Wings team to make an appearance at some of the Rod Pedersen Show on-location events throughout the summer. Red Bull has launched the new Peach Edition, which is exclusively available at 7-Eleven and Loblaws, Superstore, and no frills. Red Bull gives you wings. Jumping back into my poll topics here. So I never even finished those. Point 6. Bob McKenzie of TSN says an NHL regular season will resume in June and July. Playoffs August, September. They'll take October off. fire up next season in November.
Whoa.
And that's what NHL governors and GMs are talking about. That's from the big guy, Bob McKenzie. How do you feel about that?
Interesting. I know one of the things, there's two things in play. One is the integrity of the Stanley Cup playoffs and the 100-year tradition of the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two is next season, because you don't want this to start impacting multiple years ahead, and then all of a sudden you do a shortened season next year, and then players like, oh, I like playing 72 games or 68 games. Let's do that now more often, and then it becomes the norm.
Well, it won't be up to the players, of course, as you know.
So that becomes part of it in the negotiations, NFL or NHLPA and the NHL when the next collective bargaining agreement comes up. But I like it. You know what? I don't mind it because you're going to start the season. You're going to continue the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think it's such a big deal starting in November because you've had hockey right up until September. I do think if they're going to play, this is now the NHL playing. It's going to impact the CFL, is it not? If the CFL is playing,
how so?
I mean, if you're competing for eyeballs, you're playing at the same times. When the Stanley Cup playoffs are on and you're trying to, pack 30,000 people into Mosaic Stadium, if that's the case, if you're back to playing in front of fans, but
aren't you always the guy that says competition's better for everybody?
It is. It would really make you step up your game, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
For me as a sports fan, I think it would be wildly entertaining. NFL will be rolling with meaningful games by that time in September. Will they be getting their season started? CFL would be in the thick of real meaningful games Labor Day, and the NHL would be handing out the Stanley Cup. It'd be the greatest for sports fans. I think it'd be awesome.
Our friend strongman Rylan Betker's watching. He writes in, he says, that's a lot of hockey right there. The players better be working on their conditioning now to get ready for that potential schedule. I think that the players are working on it, but as Brent Sopel said last week, Stanley Cup champion with Chicago, that you're out of game shape within 2 days. And actually, Shane Knighty would be a really good guy to ask about that. He's coming up in about 15 minutes' time. Shane Knighty, Vegas Golden Knights color commentator, played in the National Hockey League with several teams. That's why I think McKenzie's saying June or July, because you're going to need, a good couple weeks?
Yep.
To get in game shape for real. So I'm actually... Well, you knew they were going to take it seriously. You knew they were going to take it very seriously. Player safety is paramount. Yeah. Secondary to the revenue side of it. Let's just be real.
But it is important. It is a part of it.
It is a huge part of it,
think about the same thing here, from a business owner perspective and trying to build a business. It's important that we stay on the air and continue to provide value for our customers and continue to provide value for the listeners. But if you get sick and something happens, then we're really in trouble. The whole business crumbles. So it's a little bit of both, but you're right. They got to take care of their players, and they got to worry about revenue.
Our director of scouting, Craig Smith, is watching, two-time Grey Cup champion. Smitty says, Dupes looks great today. Something's different. Don't know what it is. I know what it is. Two things, actually. Do you want to tell them what's new?
Well,
You've shaved.
I've shaved.
And you're wearing socks.
And I'm wearing socks. And that's not why I look good. It's why I look uncomfortable. But I've also been eating right, drinking lots of water, working out, doing all those things to make sure that the isolation doesn't get the best of me.
I've been eating junk. That's my bad. Haven't been able to work out and feeling like we're all going to emerge from this as fat, pale Anglo-Saxons that we are, like myself anyway. Clark, too. I mean, the third Sedin over there. The fat Sedin. Well, have you seen them lately? Maybe they're all fat. Who knows?
That's what happens when you're not on the ice for 3 years, right? 4 years.
Beards down to their belly button. But seriously, though, hockey, I believe, will be back. Long said that I believed it would be back. Who knows? You got two choices here. You can be positive or you can be negative. It's up to you. We're really, as somebody said, and we saw this early on, you're seeing people's true colors at this time.
Yeah.
Are we not? In every regard. Whether you're a negative person, whether you're a positive person, whether you are a fear monger, whether you're a leader, whether you're a follower, whether you're a chicken, people get exposed.
Oh, yeah.
At the time of a crisis. By the way, Craig Smith, people want to know, I think we would settle for him writing in his answer to this, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
And then we got to get Smitty on a video chat. I don't think Craig Smith understands how popular he is as our director of scouting. You really are, Smitty. People want to know your thoughts on the CFL GMs wanting to move the draft back because they don't know the players well enough. I say they need to just make do like everybody else is. You're saying it is highly critical and their jobs depend on it. I'm not saying I don't see where they're coming from. I'm saying they're not flexible. They've never been flexible. Maybe it's time to be a little more flexible.
I can see it. I mean, everybody has to be flexible in a situation, but I mean, it's not a one and done either. It's not 1 year of draft picks, even though it is. That draft pick, especially more in the NFL than the CFL, is years. If you're drafting a quarterback, that's you're trying to set up your team for the next 10, 15 years. So it's a highly critical selection.
Yeah. So I think we want to know where Craig falls on that, Smitty, if you wouldn't mind answering that question for us. And again, that's not dogging the CFL GMs and personnel people. I get them as well as anybody. But I said to Darren, I did a personality profile the other day. Like, it's a long one. And it said 3 of the things that I need to work on, or a couple anyways, are be more flexible. So I'm not much different than those guys.
Yep.
2, playing within the rules. I have a bit of a problem with that. Shocking, I know. It's what puts me in front of the SGI traffic board, appealing, begging to keep my license. Why should I have to, stay within the speed limit? Why? I'm on the road all the time. Everybody else is.
You don't know who I am? No.
I don't know why. And the other thing, stressors for me are toxic, illogical people.
Yep.
And then I'm reading this going, isn't this a stressor for everybody? But anyways, I'll move on. I'm just saying we all got to be a little more flexible at this time. Point 7 of my Elite 8 show topics, Randy Ambrosie to hold a CFL town hall yesterday. I like that. Randy made the joke that tomorrow will be the first time he's worn a dress shirt in the last 2 weeks because he's had his sleeves rolled up or his T-shirt sleeves rolled up, trying to get a solution to this, trying to save the season, trying to save his league. I don't think anybody thought Randy Ambrosie went on a holiday at this time. We all know that he's been busy, so I'm glad that he's out addressing the fans. You said it yourself. The leaders are the ones right now that are under the most stress, probably, because they're responsible for everybody.
They are. And that's the thing about, running a business or being a leader. Everybody aspires to it. Everybody aspires. Entrepreneurship is quite the buzzword of the day, right? It seems cool to put that on your Instagram profile that you're an entrepreneur. But when you're at the top, it is awfully lonely at the top, because everybody, when the fires are going off, and that's your job really, is putting out fires. Everybody's turning to you being like, okay, now what? And you're sitting there with, there's nobody.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why they get so much money.
Time to go. Yep.
That's why they get paid the most.
Yep.
They don't necessarily earn it every day, but they earn it in times like this.
Big time.
So kudos to Randy Ambrosie for doing the town hall tomorrow Q&A with fans. Point 8, as we're just spitballing here today, we're kind of going back and forth. The number one topic that everybody's enjoyed the most, as my earpiece falls, is the CFL games topic, by the way. What would be the minimum amount of games that would preserve the CFL's integrity? I've said 8, simply because it works for junior football, university football, college football. You're saying 12. So that'll probably be a theme for a lot of the show. Craig Smith has put his answer up regarding moving the draft back. Can you throw that up on the screen, guys? And I want to read that to our viewers and to our listeners. Our director of scouting regarding moving the draft back, he says, the teams will be fine if they've done their work like we did in Saskatchewan. We could draft in December from visiting all the schools. Video is so important now, and all teams have red eyes from watching video. Would be nice to have the combine info, but they'll be fine. Well, thank you, Smitty. And I shouldn't have spoke for him, because I thought he would be like all the rest, frothing at the mouth. We can't move this back, because what it seems that's what they're saying. I believe that they will be fine.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's a little different in the NFL. When you're drafting, franchise quarterbacks, and you're trying to draft and revamp your offensive line with a big tackle, or a defensive end who's going to completely change your pass rush and your pressure schemes on your defensive side of the football. In the CFL, it's not quite as critical. because unfortunately we're not drafting Canadians to come in and be the face of the franchise or to be your next franchise quarterback. It's not quite as critical, but they're doing their jobs and they're visiting with all the schools and watching enough film. It's just a little more critical, that process. Where it becomes an issue is guys like Craig who are on the road like crazy, meeting with all of these Americans, going all over the United States, doing those types of scouting visits and that due diligence. When you can't do that, that makes it awfully tough too. So, and one of the things about Craig and why people are so drawn to him, why he's such a good scout, is because of his ability to connect with people. So when he, is all over, North America, talking to coaches and schools and scouts and other players and finding players, people open up to him. That's when you get that's the real value of a scout, right?
No doubt. Say it again. The people that know me know my dad was one for 40 years. They know that. I know them inside out. Difference being the scouts, is in the barn come draft day. They've done their work. It's the GMs. It's their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
On draft day. So the GMs want more information. We'll see what the CFL does with it. To date, they haven't made a decision on it. Craig Smith has said, our director of scouting, that he is available anytime. So may I propose something? Everybody want to send in their questions through our social media feeds, and we bring Smitty on tomorrow via video chat and have a Q&A with Smitty.
That'd be great.
From our viewers, from a football perspective.
People want to see him with his tea and his Longhorns.
And his dogs.
And his dogs. The dogs have to be on it, and we have to see him from the living room. It looks like an amazing place to sit up and watch sports.
One more before we break. We're going to be going to Las Vegas shortly. Shane Knighty of the Vegas Golden Knights will be joining us. Veteran NHLer and current broadcaster, former Prince Albert Raider, will be with us. But my final point was, will there be too much pressure on Connor Bedard? I watched the interview with Gino Reda. I actually had it on this morning. I showed my wife. She was leaving to go to work. I'm like, this is the kid. This is Connor Bedard. He just looks like a franchise player. Did you see the interview?
Yeah.
He looks great. He's got the flow. We've seen the video of him. He's everything. I looked up the exceptional player status in the OHL. Aaron Ekblad, John Tavares, Connor McDavid. He's the first ever in Western Canada.
Yep.
Is it going to be too much? Because I think if you're born to do this, if you have the right in you, the right stuff in you, it's not going to matter what people say.
Thing about being the greatest of all time or the greatest in anything is it's about the journey, not the destination, right? You're not doing this and doing anything to have the big house and the mansion and everything else. You're doing it because you love playing the game,
right,
and you love the journey of trying to continue to prove that you're the best. And so it's the Tom Brady thing. I mean, he was no hotshot in college or coming out of college as a top prospect. His 6th round pick, his combine stuff looked like it was Rich Eisen running the 40-yard dash, not an NFL prospect. But here's a guy who worked. He was disciplined, and he continued to work no matter what. And so Connor Bedard has put that in clearly to get to this point. It's now every level you got to continue to work. Or is he just in it for the fame? Hey, I'm the franchise guy, exceptional status, first overall pick, and he gets to high school and starts wheeling the broads and going to parties and being the big deal. Or is he a hockey player? Nothing has shown that he's not the hockey player that just wants to continue to be the best. So he's got the tools so far, but there is a lot of pressure on the guy, and there's going to be a lot of distractions. So,
well, who are the guys that have had that on them? The next one, they're typically nerds. Sidney Crosby, Connor McDavid, not the coolest guys in the world.
That's
Do you know what I'm saying?
Those guys, and you got to think, I want his life. I want to be Connor McDavid. Well, Connor McDavid doesn't go to parties on the weekend. Connor
No.
McDavid isn't up playing video games or going. He's sitting there eating his salad while you're having pizza, enjoying the game. He's working out while you're on vacation. He's working on his skills while you're sleeping.
Nelson Hakowicz writes in, he says, the Pats just became a hot ticket. Oh, that's how I opened the show. That was the very first thing I said right out of the gate, is we're going to be front page. When I say we, I'm an ordained member of the alumni. The past couple of years have been worth it, man. The Pats are a hot ticket. Corey Usher, he's a Dub grad. He's watching. He writes in from Moose Jaw. He says, a lot of WHL players were never given exceptional status and were studs. This is a lot of pressure on that young man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what are we supposed to do about it? It's on him to deal with that. This reminds me a lot of standing on the field at a Florida mini camp with the Riders or at training camp, and I'm arguing with management because they're like, Rod, you're building these guys up. They're going to get big heads, and we're going to have to pay them, and you're building them up like all-stars. And what if they're not? I'm like, that's what I do. Like, I'm sorry. But see what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's on the players to deal with it. It's on you to coach it out of them, manage it. That's what I do. Hype, get people excited. But we could never meet common ground on that.
Yeah, well,
never.
And on this, I mean, Jason's question about where does this originate from, which was the long question, and it's not a goofy question. The kid's not going to get handpicked by the league in Hockey Canada and say, man, this kid's pretty good, exceptional status. Now you got to play in the Western Hockey League. No. This comes from the family, the player, BC Hockey, the Western Hockey League, and Hockey Canada all together, the kid's age and all that stuff. They're all a part of this decision. The kid has to, first of all, and the family has to want to request exceptional status. That's from my understanding. That has to come from them. So if the kid's sitting there being like, I want to do it, it's a good sign that
he does want to.
He's ready to take it head on.
Nelson goes on to say, is there more coaching in minor hockey around brand management and pressure management now than there was? I don't believe so, but there should be. Personal trainers, mental coaches, nutrition coaches, shooting coaches. Yeah, there's way more of that, but there should be more than there already is. I think a lot of people don't know what they don't know. Mm-hmm. They don't know who to trust and so forth. Let's just pause because we're behind time. Any word from Nighty?
He's coming soon.
Okay. Nides was on a conference call with the Golden Knights higher-ups. Sounds like it's done. So Shane Nighty, the Golden Knights, will join us after the break and more of this chat. Thanks for joining us for coffee, everybody, on this Thursday morning. It's episode 201 of Canada's Morning Sports Talk Show. We'll be right back. It's the Rod Pedersen Show on Facebook Live, coming this spring to Game Plus TV Network, and listen live at rodpedersen.com.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.